car, the squad car and the Benz.
And what did you do with them then after that?
When I left the scene, I escorted the two flatbeds to the BCA headquarters
And just generally, where is the BCA headquarters?
in St. Paul, Minnesota.
And so did you essentially travel with those two flatbeds?
Yes,
And when you get to BCA headquarters, what did you do then?
I ensured that the two vehicles were secured in the crime scene garage in the back of the BCA headquarters.
And why did you do that?
Part of chain of custody for the two vehicles.
And what were you going to have done with the two vehicles?
I was going to have the crime scene team process the two vehicles.
And so they placed them in a secure area where only BCA personnel could access them?
Yes, sir.
And did you lock them?
Yes, sir.
And from that point, were you aware whether those vehicles were processed?
At that point,
Correct. I mean, were they subsequently processed?
they were subsequently processed, yes.
Do you recall when that happened?
Yeah, May 27th.
And so this would be essentially the next day from when you had them towed?
Yes, sir.
And were you involved in the processing of the two vehicles?
I facilitated it and I was present for portions of it.
And who does the processing of the vehicles?
The BCA crime scene team.
And so same group that had been out at the scene?
Yes, sir. Mackenzie Anderson was the team lead.
Now, because you were the case agent, well, are there other agents assigned to complete tasks for the investigation?
Yes, sir.
And did you or the other investigators attempt to locate other security videos of the incident?
Yes, sir.
And were you able to obtain some additional, security camera videos from the incident?
Yes, sir.
And can you tell the jurors where you got those from, or where the BCA got those from?
One video from Cup Foods, another one from the Dragon Walk restaurant that was immediately across the street.
And, Your Honor, if we could publish Exhibit 1. Recognize what's depicted in this photograph?
Yes, sir.
And you'll notice there's a little stylus on there. It should be. Can you just circle for the jurors where those two businesses are that you obtained the security videos from?
Okay. The first one is Cup Foods here. The second one is the Dragon Walk.
And that's where those security cameras were?
Correct.
All right. So basically on the corner of each building?
Correct.
All right. Thank you. And since you obtained different security camera videos from those two businesses and the body-worn camera videos from the officers, did you attempt to determine if the timestamps in all those various videos are the same?
Yes, sir.
Now, you told us earlier that the body-worn camera videos were all consistent on time.
That's correct.
And did you attempt to determine if the Cup Foods video timestamps matched up with the body cams?
Yes.
And what did you find?
I found that the Cup Foods video was 40 seconds ahead of the body-worn camera video timing.
And did you also do the same with respect to the Dragon Walk video?
Yes, sir.
And what did you find there?
I found that the Dragon Walk video was 24 minutes ahead of the timestamps noted on the body-worn camera footage.
Basically, you do that by comparing events in both videos, the same event.
That's correct, sir.
And did Cup Foods provide their video to agents with the BCA?
Yes.
And did you have to follow a sort of different process with the Dragon Walk?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe for the jurors what you did to obtain the video from Dragon Walk?
The owner of the Dragon Walk initially did not comply with requests, so agents with the BCA wrote search warrant and executed a search warrant to obtain a copy of the video as well as the hard drive where the video was stored.
And so those were obtained directly from the equipment from the Dragon Walk
Correct.
and downloaded for use in the investigation.
That is correct.
And through the investigation, have you had an opportunity to watch all of that video?
Yes, sir.
And portions of it depict some of the incidents that we've been talking about in this trial.
Yes, sir.
And we've already admitted some of that video, but have you also watched a portion of video that we have labeled as Exhibit 52.
Yes, sir.
And does that match up with the drag and walk video that you obtained from the equipment itself?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, at this time we would offer Exhibit 52.
52 is received.
And Your Honor, I'd offer to publish 52 at this time. And while this is running, Agent Reyerson, can you tell us again how far off the drag and walk timestamp is from those of the body cams?
Approximately 24 minutes.
And it's fast?
Yes, sir. Ahead. Okay, you can take that down then. And have you also seen a portion of the video from the drag and walk that we have labeled as Exhibit 54? Yes, sir.
And does that appear to be an accurate portion of the video you obtained directly from the drag and walk equipment?
Yes, it does, sir.
And Your Honor, at this time we'd offer Exhibit 54.
54 is received.
Now, I'm going to ask that we publish this to the jury. My recollection is about 9 minutes long, so I'm going to speed through some of it probably, but if we could publish 54. Your Honor, I'm sorry, I have got the wrong exhibit here. This has already been admitted. Let me come back to that in a little bit if I could. Your Honor, I believe it should be Exhibit 55. So if we could, and is that, do you recall seeing that and it being a portion of the drag and walk video?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm sorry, Your Honor. If we could, I'm sorry, can we offer? I'm sorry, I'll come back to that subject in a little bit, thank you. Agent Reyerson, then, as part of the investigation in your usual cases, does somebody from your agency usually attend the autopsy?
Yes, sir, generally.
And was that done in this case?
No, sir.
Do you recall why?
I believe it was COVID-19 restrictions as per the Hennepin County Medical Examiner's request.
And as part of your investigations, is it typical to obtain a blood sample from the deceased?
Yes, sir.
And do you know if that was done in this case?
Yes, sir, it was.
Can you describe for the jury how that came about?
Special Agent Brent Peterson acquired it from the Hennepin County Medical Examiner, brought it back to the BCA, and submitted it to the lab.
So just so we're clear, that's a sample of Mr. Floyd's blood, correct?
Correct.
And then that's provided to the lab for any testing they might need it for?
Yes, sir.
And at some points in the investigation, did you receive a copy of the autopsy report from the medical examiner?
Yes, sir.
And do you recall what date it was that you received that?
I believe it was June 4th, 2020.
And did that also include a copy of the toxicology report?
Yes, sir.
And prior to that, did you have much information in the investigation about any suspected drug use?
We had preliminary information, but nothing concrete.
And where did
No.
that preliminary information come from?
I believe some of the information was in the audio files of the radio traffic.
And what did that indicate in terms of drug use?
That Mr. Floyd may have been under some influence of some substance.
And did you know at that point what kind of substance,
No, sir.
what form?
No, sir.
Did you know if any drug use was suspected there at the scene?
No, sir.
I want to forward a little bit to the to December then of 2020. Was a subsequent request made to conduct a further processing of the Mercedes SUV?
Yes, it was.
Do you recall how that came about?
Per the prosecution's request.
And what was requested that be done?
A reprocessing of the Mercedes-Benz with particular focus on a few specific items to include a potential pill.
And what role did you play in then the processing again of the Mercedes SUV?
Facilitation, I notified crime scene team lead Mackenzie Anderson, and I was present for that search.
And so was the vehicle brought back to the BCA garage?
Yes, sir.
So when I say brought back, where had it been held in the interim?
A secure lot.
And by secure, you mean where the public couldn't access it?
Correct.
Now, before it's sent to that secure lot, is something done to make sure that it's not entered?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe that for the jurors, please?
We place crime scene tape over the thresholds of all the doors and sign and date to ensure chain of custody, so we know if someone had entered that vehicle or not.
And when you got that vehicle, the Mercedes SUV, back to the BCA garage, did you check the conditions of the tape on the door frames?
Yes, sir.
And were they intact?
Yes, they were.
And did the crime scene team then process that vehicle again?
Yes, sir.
And who was involved as the team leader in the processing of that vehicle?
Mackenzie Anderson.
And were you present during the processing of that vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And at some point then was a request made to reprocess the squad car 320.
Yes, sir.
And how did that come about?
The defense requested to view their Minneapolis Squad 320, and they identified something in the back seat, a pill, and then we facilitated the transportation of that squad back to BCA headquarters and processed it in the crime scene garage.
So the attorneys for the defendants asked to look at the vehicle itself,
Correct.
and that was done where, do you recall?
In the secure lot.
And then was something that they identified that prompted a further processing of that vehicle?
Correct.
They drew that to your attention?
Yes, sir.
And so then did you make arrangements to have 320 processed again?
Yes, sir.
And how was that done?
Through Mackenzie Anderson.
So brought back to the garage?
Yes, sir.
Now, were the seals in place at that point?
When it got back to the garage, no,
Why not?
because they've been broken at the secure lot
For what purpose?
for the defense to view.
So they looked at the inside of the squad car.
Correct.
And did the crime scene team then process that vehicle again?
Yes, sir.
And were you present for that processing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but did Mackenzie Anderson process that as well?
Yes, sir.
To your understanding that she will testify later about the processing of both those vehicles?
Yes, sir.
All right. So, as part of the investigation, did you also obtain medical records for Mr. Floyd?
Yes, sir.
Did you obtain complete medical records from the facilities where he had been seen?
Yes, sir.
And which providers did you obtain medical records from?
HCMC and Park Nicollet.
And HCMC is Hennepin County Medical Center?
Yes. I'm sorry.
And those records were made part of the investigation then?
Yes, sir.
Incidentally, Agent Reyerson, you yourself in working on the case, have you been in Squad 320?
Yes.
Have you had occasion to start it?
Yes, sir.
Do you know what kind of vehicle Squad 320 is?
It's a hybrid.
What does that mean to be a hybrid?
The vehicle operates both on a gas traditional engine and electronic.
And at opportunities where you started it, were there times when the gas engine would not run?
Yes, sir. The first time we attempted to start it in the crime scene garage, in the first processing, we turned the vehicle on and we didn't hear the gas engine start. So we were initially a little confused.
But did you figure out that it in fact was on?
We did, yes.
So it was running on the battery rather than the gas engine.
Yes, sir.
Do you know if Squad 320 has a catalytic converter?
Yes, sir, it does.
And what is the function of a catalytic converter?
To reduce toxic emissions.
Prior to coming to court, did you have an opportunity to review a video that I'll refer to as a composite video?
Yes, sir.
That is a putting together of two separate videos into one.
Yes, sir.
And did you recognize that as a mix of both Officer King's body-worn camera and Darnell Frazier's Facebook video?
Yes, I did, sir.
And while you were watching it, were you able to determine if they were synced up? That means, were they running at the same time?
Yes, they appeared to be synced.
And, Your Honor, we would offer Exhibit 127.
Any objection?
No objection.
127 is received.
And Agent Reyerson, what I'm going to do is talk about some timing with this video. So I'm going to refer you to portions of it, so we're not going to watch the whole thing, but to specific portions of it. I'm going to ask that 127 be published in that way, and if we can first go to 2019-18. Okay, so the record should reflect that right now we're at 2019-17, that's good. And Agent Reyerson, at this moment in Exhibit 127, is this the approximate moment when Mr. Floyd is placed prone on the ground?
Yes, it is, sir.
And when this happens, around this time period, I'm going to let this run for about 10 seconds, okay?
Yes, sir.
Right. You got your restraint. Hobble. Okay. Grab that.
Now, looking at that 10-second portion, were you able to determine approximately where Mr. Chauvin's left knee is?
Yes, sir. It appears as though it's on the back of Mr. Floyd's neck.
And are you able to determine where Mr. Chauvin's right knee is?
It appeared as though it was on Mr. Floyd's back.
Right here at 2019-28, the hand sort of in the center of the photograph, that Officer Chauvin's hand,
Yes, sir.
okay, wearing a glove.
Yes, sir.
In the videos you have reviewed, was he wearing gloves on both hands?
Yes, sir.
Now I'm gonna just speed up to 20-20-45. So the record should reflect we've actually stopped at 20-20-44, that's good. And I'm gonna let this just run for 10 seconds, okay?
Yes, sir.
My face getting bad.
Yeah, so you just legs up.
Oh, that's all right.
No, just leave him.
Oh
Just
my
leave him.
God.
Leave him. Yeah, just leave him.
Ah,
Alright.
the
Park's still sitting up.
Now, here at 20-20-55 for the record, we see another video portion within this video, correct?
Yes, sir.
So the right hand, as you're looking at it, the right side of the screen is now Darnella Fraser's video, correct?
Yes, sir.
So this is what you meant earlier when we talked about a composite video.
Correct.
Is there a time during the Darnella Fraser video that it becomes apparent Mr. Floyd stops verbalizing
Yes.
or saying words?
Yes, sir.
And that approximately, well, if we could then go to 20-23-59. All right, so we're at 23:58, and I'd ask that you play this for about 10 seconds again.
Bro, but you can get him off the ground. You being a bum right now. You can get him off the ground, bro. You can get him off the ground. You being a bum right now.
All right, so is this the moment in the encounter between Mr. Floyd and Mr. Chauvin when Mr. Floyd appears to stop making verbal sounds, talking?
Yes, sir.
Now, prior to coming to court, did you have an opportunity to look at defense exhibits 1045, 46, 47, and 48?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask that exhibit 1045 be placed on the screen, please. And can you note for the jurors the timestamp in this exhibit?
20-23-32.
And so approximately how long after Mr. Floyd was put on the prone position on the ground did this occur? Would it help to refresh your recollection to
May I
refer to a
res-
note? Sure.
He was placed on the ground at 20-19-18. Yeah, so 4 minutes.
More than 4 minutes?
More than 4 minutes, yes, sir.
And then going back to Exhibit 127, is there a point in time on Darnella Fraser's Facebook video when it appears that Mr. Floyd no longer makes any movements?
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to ask you to go to 20-24-58. (20-24-58). And does this, well, I'll let this run for about 10 seconds too.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean,
Good so far.
my name might be a little stressed.
I think that's cool though, bro. You're a bum, bro. You're a bum for that. You're a bum for that, bro. You get mad.
So is this approximately the time when afterwards Mr. Floyd does not appear to make any movement?
Yes, sir.
For the record, we've stopped at 20-25-08, and in this photograph, the still portion of the Facebook video or the Darnella Fraser video, does it appear that Mr. Chauvin is using his weight to hold Mr. Floyd down?
Yes, it does.
I'm going to ask to show you Exhibit 1046. Can you tell the jurors, the timestamp from this exhibit?
20-26-40.
And so how long after the time that Mr. Floyd no longer appears to be moving is this photograph taken?
Approximately 7 minutes.
I'm sorry, from the previous photograph?
Oh, from the previous, I'm sorry. Approximately 3 minutes.
Okay, so we know that the moment where he stopped moving, we had as roughly 20, 24, 58, correct?
Correct.
And so from that time to the time on this photograph is about how long?
From 20, 48.
From 2024, 58 to 2026, roughly 2 minutes, right?
Yeah, 2 minutes.
So Exhibit 1046 portrays a time after Mr. Floyd had appeared to stop moving.
Correct.
Are you able to tell from the Darnella Frazier video when the paramedics arrived?
Yes, sir.
So I would like to go back to 127 then and advance to 20:27:20. All right, so here the record should reflect we're at 20:27:18. That's close enough, and I ask you to play about 10 seconds of that.
When you 1087, bro, you're a bum, bro. 987, bro, you're a bum. First thing you want to grab is your mace because you scared, bro. You're a fucking minority, you're a fucking bum, bro.
Actually, let's just keep rolling for about 10 more seconds, please.
Like, bro, 3 minutes, bro. What are you doing? Bro, he's not even fucking.
So there we saw one of the paramedics walking up, correct?
Correct.
And so the timestamp here is 20:27:40. Correct?
Correct.
And now I'm going to toggle back, I'm sorry, to Exhibit 1047. Do you see the exhibit there?
Yes, sir.
And the timestamp on Exhibit 1047, do you see that?
Yes, sir.
And then also to Exhibit 1048.
Yes, sir.
Do you see the timestamp there?
Yes, sir.
Do those two still photos depict a time after the paramedics arrived?
Yes, sir.
Based on your work on the case and your review of the videos, is there a moment in Exhibit 127? You can take that down. Is there a moment in Exhibit 127 where you think you can see better the placement of Officer Chauvin's right knee?
Yes, sir.
And I would ask to go back to 127 at 20:28:43. All right, 20:28:43. And what I'd like to have you do, Agent Reyerson, while we're frozen here on this moment, if you would take the cursor and illustrate to the jurors where Officer Chauvin's right knee is. All right. And so what I'd like to do then, I'll remove that and have the video played. Okay, you can go ahead. Okay, we'll just stop the video there. Were you able to see there when he had his right knee on Mr. Floyd's back?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, to keep things moving, I think I will deal with that previous video at a separate time and continue. That's all I have. Thank you.
Sure. We'll take a moment.
Your Honor, subject to recalling Mr. Reyerson or Agent Reyerson, there's one issue that we have to clean up, but I'm prepared on other matters.
All right.
Good afternoon, Agent Reyerson.
Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you for being here. So you testified that you were the primary case agent in this particular case,
Yes,
correct?
sir.
And it's fair to say that the BCA's investigation into this case was fairly extensive, correct?
Yes, sir.
You would agree that approximately 50 BCA agents were involved in this case in one form or another?
Yes, sir.
Those BCA agents were frequently paired up with agents of the Federal Bureau of Investigation or other law enforcement agencies?
That's correct.
Would you agree that roughly 25, 26 FBI agents participated in your investigation?
Yes, sir.
Would you agree that ultimately, all things told, the BCA executed approximately a dozen search warrants in this case?
Yes, sir.
There was an extensive amount of information that was gathered by the BCA, agreed?
Yes, sir.
A lot of that information is ultimately, has no bearing on this case, agreed? Meaning, interviews were conducted, for example, of people who didn't see anything.
That did occur. However, I believe that, our investigation was very thorough.
Right. And that's what I'm trying to just gather. It was more than just watching a few minutes of video, piecing a couple of things together, interviewing a couple people, right?
Yes, sir.
In fact, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that roughly 200 citizen witnesses were interviewed in this
Yes.
case?
Yes, sir.
And so when we break down and we look at those citizen witnesses, the purpose of any investigation is to gather as much information as is possible, right?
Yes, sir.
And to preserve that information for further review to determine at a later point if it does or doesn't become relevant to a criminal investigation, right?
Yes.
So in terms of, say, the citizen witnesses, the BCA agents interviewed many witnesses who did not observe, they weren't present, for example, correct?
Yes, sir.
People who live in the area, agents went and canvassed the area, knocked on doors, talked to people at local businesses, and they said, oh, I wasn't there at that time, I was somewhere else, right?
Correct.
BCA agents worked hard to identify people who may have seen some portion of that, correct? Of this incident, correct?
Yes, sir.
So things that BCA agents did would include trying to read license plate numbers on cars that were passing by, looking up the registered owners of those cars and going and interviewing them, correct?
Yes, sir.
And sometimes people acknowledged being in that area. Sometimes they said, we weren't there,
Yes, sir.
right? There were also witnesses that the BCA agents interviewed that provided just sort of background information, right?
Yes, some, sir.
So, for example, the owner of the vehicle that was being driven by Mr. Floyd was not present that day, but she was interviewed, correct?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Right. And your job as the lead case agent is to sort of quarterback all of this, right?
Yes, sir.
And as other agents receive information, you take it and you maintain a data file, correct?
Correct.
And every time a BCA agent performs some task, the way the BCA works is a new report is generated for that particular task. Agreed?
That is correct.
So rather than having one officer write a long narrative police report, they will write several police reports instead, right?
That's correct.
And to date, over 400 BCA investigative reports have been prepared in this case. Agreed?
Yeah, specifically 440.
So we're at almost 450, and some of those reports are even being generated now as we speak, correct?
Possibly.
Right. And in fact, we just went through this analysis of an exhibit, and you compared it to some other exhibits that were already presented. That's something that literally was probably just done today, right?
Possibly, sir.
Right. I mean, the analysis that you just did here on direct examination, you never wrote a police report about that, right?
No, sir.
And that's because those exhibits were just introduced in court, right?
Yes, sir.
And so, now in addition, this investigation took a lot of different twists and turns. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
In part because of kind of what was going on in the city at the time,
Yes, sir.
right? So for example, certain pieces of equipment belonging to Officer Chauvin or other involved officers were located in other places, right?
That is correct.
And those investigations kind of were turned into this investigation and became a part of this investigation, globally speaking.
Yes.
And because of the profile of this case, the BCA maintains like a tip database line, right?
That is correct.
And it's fair to say that a number of citizens called in with information or what they perceive to be information.
Yes, sir.
And it's the BCA's job to follow up on every single one of those little pieces of information. Right?
Yes, it is.
And ultimately, in following up on those little pieces of information, oftentimes you can see that, I mean, this is irrelevant to this case, it's something else, or this person may just want to share their opinion, right?
Yes, sir.
And so this investigation has been ongoing essentially since May 25th of 2020.
Yes, sir.
And all things told, part of what the BCA did was to go and get training records from the city of Minneapolis, correct?
That's correct.
Through search warrants.
Yes, sir.
And there were multiple search warrants to obtain that type of information, right?
Yes, sir.
And there were 2 search warrants executed on the Mercedes-Benz driven by Mr. Floyd, correct?
Yes, sir.
There were 2 consent to searches of Squad 320, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now I want to just be very clear about something. When you talk about the second search of the Squad 320,
Yes.
you prior to that the defense request to view, right?
Yes.
Squad 320 had been in the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension secure storage from effectively May 25th, 26th, all the way until January when that was done, right?
Yes, not on site at our headquarters.
Right, at the secure storage location.
Correct.
And the defense would not have had access to that unless you or another representative of the BCA was present, correct?
That is correct.
And it is common, is it not, in your investigations for defense attorneys to ask to view pieces of evidence, right?
Yes, it is.
And it's permissible.
Yes.
And that was done in this particular case, right?
Yes, it was.
And you weren't present at that. That was Agent Phil, I believe, that was present,
Correct.
along with Scott Mueller.
Correct.
And I just want to make sure you're not suggesting that the defense in somehow put pieces of pills into that squad car.
No, sir, I'm not suggesting that.
And in fact, it would have been the agents who were present to cut the seal on the squad car, correct?
Yes.
All right. And the defense isn't necessarily allowed to touch or manipulate or do anything to that squad car.
That is correct.
All right. So part of the overall investigation, again, included getting surveillance videos from area businesses, right?
Correct.
Including the speedway across the street.
Yes, sir.
And some of the video is of higher quality than others, right?
That is correct.
And then also identifying people who were present and obtaining cell phones of those, right?
Correct.
And just lots and lots and lots of stuff that happens.
Yes, sir.
Right. Ultimately, when you first got involved in this case as the lead case agent, you had a very limited piece of information, right?
Yes, sir.
That was information that was gleaned from the dispatch. It was gleaned from, just basic, what's called public safety reporting, correct?
Correct.
An individual had been detained, that individual passed away, and you began the normal critical incident process, agreed?
That is correct.
Which includes securing the scene, right?
Yes.
It includes securing potential evidence, correct?
Yes, sir.
And it includes interviewing witnesses.
That's correct.
All right. And the critical incident policies of the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension were followed in this particular case, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, when you conducted the first search of the Mercedes-Benz back on May 26th of 2020, you were present when that happened, right?
From some of the time.
Right. But another crime scene team analyst would have taken photographs, looked at things, and preserved that both digitally by way of photographs, plus keeping the actual evidence, right?
Yes, a BCA agent took the photographs.
That's Mackenzie Anderson? Or,
No, that was Special Agent Joseph O'Brien.
right, he was also a part of the crime scene team.
Yes, sir.
And so, again, your job is to investigate the case, right?
Yes, sir.
And so, did you review those photographs
Yes,
at
I
that
did.
time? Did you specifically take note at that time of the presence of pills in the Mercedes-Benz?
Out of the 750 photos that I reviewed, I did not.
Okay. And so, it's not that you didn't preserve the evidence, you just didn't notice it.
Correct.
And again, based on what you had learned about what happened in this case, you weren't necessarily looking for anything of that nature, right?
Correct.
Because ultimately, whether it was relevant or not relevant was to be determined, right?
Yes, sir.
And you testified that you did watch all of the body camera footage,
Yes, sir.
but initially other agents, because in terms of the body camera footage in this case, you would agree that it's extensive.
Very much so.
In the sense of after this incident, something like 8 or 10 Minneapolis police officers were on scene, right?
Correct.
They were securing the scene from roughly, 9 o'clock in the evening until 3 o'clock in the morning, right?
Correct.
And all of those Minneapolis police officers, pursuant to policy, had body-worn cameras on.
That is correct.
So roughly 5 to 6 hours of body-worn camera footage for all of those.
Approximately.
And and then there's all of the video, the surveillance video. It takes a lot of time to do this, right?
Yes, sir.
And this investigation would be different than a lot of other investigations, wouldn't it? In terms of the officer involved uses of force.
In what way, sir?
Well, this investigation was occurring simultaneously to a court process, was it not?
Yes, sir.
Normally, an investigation is completed, and then it's submitted to some prosecuting organization, and they review it, and they make determinations, right?
Correct.
And that is, of all of the officer, or the majority of the officer-involved incidents that you've been involved with, how it's commonly occurred, right?
Yes, sir.
And so, in this particular case, things were unusual because of that.
That is correct.
Right? And so information in May or June was not known until November, December, January, etc.
That is correct.
And so there has been sort of a changing dynamic in terms of the investigation.
Correct.
In terms of the videos that you have watched, you did testify that you watched the Dragon Walk video.
Yes.
We need to sort out some exhibit number stuff on that real quick. But I want to bring your attention back to, I think this is exhibit 122. And I'm gonna, if we could publish, Your Honor, I'm gonna start for the record at 20:25:59, and I'm gonna ask you to watch, 20:25:59. It's the King one you just showed, 122, is it? 127. Yep. Sorry, I don't have my notebook.
You say 122?
127.
127.
And permission to publish.
You in?
I'm going to ask you, sir, to watch when Officer Chauvin stands up. I'm gonna ask you to watch Mr. Floyd's left, what would be his left arm, okay?
Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry. So we'll start for the record at 20:26:03.
Don't do drugs, bro. What is that? What do you think that is? You saw you call what he did, okay? You call what he doing, okay? You call what you doing. You call what you doing, okay, bro? The firefighter. Yes, I am from Minneapolis. Bro, you call you think that's okay? Check his pulse. Check his right. No, check his pulse.
I'm sorry, I'm at the wrong spot. Maybe take this down. I apologize, Your Honor. I had the wrong exhibit pulled up. All right, sorry, it is the right exhibit, Exhibit 127, and I have it at 20:28 and 32. So I'm going to ask you again, sir, to just watch the left arm of Mr. Floyd on the left side of the screen.
On the left side, okay. So are you referring to the body-worn camera side or the...
Body-worn camera side.
Okay.
Yes, please. Did you observe Mr. Floyd's left arm on the ground underneath Mr. Chauvin's right knee?
I believe I did, yes.
And when Mr. Chauvin stood up, Mr. Floyd's arm sort of came up, right?
Could I see that again, please?
Sure. I'm gonna just hit back 10 seconds and start. It's hard because of this bar. Let's try one more time. And
I have kind of a glare as well.
Pardon?
You can stand up. Can you see that?
So what was the question? Repeat the question, please.
Do you observe Mr. Chauvin's right knee to be compressing Mr. Floyd's left arm?
So clarification, I think from what I see here, it was Mr. Chauvin's shin that was compressing the arm, and the knee was actually on the back.
That's what you believe you see?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And, but nevertheless, Mr. Floyd's left arm, the tricep area, was in between Mr. Chauvin's either knee or shin, right?
Yes.
Did you review and study the body-worn cameras like very closely yourself?
I've seen all of them. I've reviewed most of them closely, yes.
Okay. And did you attempt to understand and hear what various parties were saying at various times?
Yes.
Did you ever hear Mr. Floyd say, "I ate too many drugs"?
No.
Like to publish Exhibit 1007, and I'm going to ask you, sir, to listen to Mr. Floyd's voice. Did you hear that?
Yes, I did.
Did it appear that Mr. Floyd said, "I ate too many drugs"?
Yes, it did.
In the videos that we watched, both on direct examination and we've seen throughout the course of this case, there appears to be a liquid forming underneath the vehicle, correct?
Yes.
And that liquid stream goes out into the street towards the curb behind the back of the squad car, correct?
That's correct.
And it's fair to say that liquid coming from underneath the vehicle appears to be coming from underneath the vehicle, correct?
That is correct.
And depending upon your perspective, correct, that appears that could have been urine coming from the body of Mr. Floyd.
Yes, sir.
But we can see, based on this, that was actually probably condensation from the running squad car, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's common when a squad car is running air conditioning or whatnot, right? Condensation drips from the bottom of the muffler or exhaust system.
Yes, sir.
And you would agree that that's what that trail of liquid appears to be?
Yes, sir.
I have nothing further subject to the discussion we need to have about an exhibit.
Mr. Frank.
Agent Reyerson, with the hybrid, would the, figure out the way to say this right, can the air conditioning run with just the battery and not the gas engine?
Yes, it would.
And you were asked to look at a very short clip of a body-worn camera and ask, I assume for the first time, what Mr. Floyd was saying there.
Yes, sir.
Were you played before that? What questions were asked or things said by the officers before Mr. Floyd says that?
I don't recall right now.
It wasn't part of that video, was it, what occurred beforehand?
No.
Ever had to listen to that piece of audio and try and figure out what Mr. Floyd was saying?
I have not, no.
And so that was an exercise that Mr. Nelson asked you to do for the first time sitting there,
Yes, sir.
without reviewing the conversation beforehand.
Yes, sir.
You were asked about the moment where it appears Mr. Chauvin's right knee is on Mr. Floyd's back, just before he gets up.
Yes.
In that, did you notice whether Mr. Floyd's shirt moved?
Yes, it appeared to move
From what?
from Mr. Chauvin's knee.
You were asked to describe this as an unusual case because the investigation kept going on while there was a court process.
Yes.
Is it the typical process then when you investigate a case to hand it over and then be done with it and never work on it again?
No.
When you turn over an investigation, is it common to continue working on that investigation throughout the court process?
Yes.
Have you ever in your career conducting investigations said to a charging authority, sorry, my work's done on the case, I'm not going to work on this any further?
No.
In fact, some of the ongoing investigation that you did was essentially at the request of the defense attorneys.
That is correct.
And I'm referring, just to be clear, I don't want to misrepresent anything, but based on the defense attorneys seeing that pill in the vehicle.
Correct.
I think what Mr. Nelson was asking was, you're not saying in any way that they put that pill there.
No.
That's all I have here.
Anything further?
Are you a car mechanic?
No, sir.
Do you have a hybrid vehicle?
No, sir.
You understand that this squad car has both an engine, like a internal combustion engine that runs on gasoline, and a battery, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so whether the vehicle was running on the battery or the gas engine on May 25th, 2020, you would have no way of knowing, correct?
Correct.
No further questions.
All right. Should we give everyone a 10-minute break so we can discuss this issue, or?
If you don't mind, Your Honor.
All right. Members of the jury, we're going to give you a 10-minute break while we discuss a different legal issue. If you could just remain at this point. I'm not sure if this involves you, but you can see. Did you know that stylus and just swap it out for All right, be seated. Is this just for you to privately hash out something, or?
We just have to figure out which, there's a switch in the exhibit numbers compared to the outside here.
All right, if you could work with Mr. Schaefer on that. Also, 1007 is. Exhibit, although it is part of another one. We had not shown as received, but both parties agree it was offered and received earlier. Is that right? I'm just asking for a status.
But I don't know if it was offered.
Well, I would offer 1007.
Any objection to 1007? 1007 is formally received. All right, you guys, let's circle back at 2:30.